Okay guys, this is another video for structure charts. So this is a different question. This is again from a June paper. I'm not sure. I think it's a different version of June 2022. Um, and instead of giving you a drawn structure chart, this one actually asks you to draw it yourself. Now, not to worry, these are always something that looks scary, but in reality, they are always quite simple. Now, the problem with this one, in my opinion, is that it asks you for a bit of theory, and if you're not familiar with structure diagrams or structure charts, sorry, it might be difficult to come up with an answer. So let's get right to it and see what they're asking. So, question 3 here says 4 program modules are defined as follows, and we have 3 procedures and 1 function. Okay, and each have different parameters. The function returns a Boolean value, which is good for us because we know Boolean values are indicated with a non-hollow pointer. Okay. It says here we have another procedure that uses biref. So we know that the arrow that we're going to draw is going to be pointing both upwards and downwards. And one here, a procedure that has no parameters. Okay. So the first part here says a structure chart will be produced as part of a development process. And it says here, describe the purpose of a structure chart. Well, what can we determine from a structure chart? Well, the first thing that we can see from a structure chart is essentially the hierarchy. Okay, what's the head of this program? What is being sent to where, etc. Now, other than the hierarchy, we can also see what parameters are being passed between modules. Now, I think I have the answer somewhere. Let me see if I can copy and paste it. Let's see. Here it is. Right, let's put this on top like so. Actually, hang on. Let's change it to in front. Let's see. In front. There we go. So these are the answers they gave. Let's go over them just really quickly to see if we answered correctly. So it says here module relationships or hierarchy or selection or repetition, anything essentially that we can throw in a structure diagram is part of the first point. And the second one here says the parameters that are passed between subtasks or modules, which is, I think, pretty much what we said spot on. Okay, now it gives an alternative answer to this, and it says here whether a module is a function or a procedure, which it might not be the easiest thing to determine from a structure diagram. Right, regardless. Let's take a look at the next one. Part B says module section 1 calls one of the 3 modules. The module called will be selected when the program runs. Okay, so we've got a bit of a tricky situation here. It says here the module will be called uh, will be selected when the program runs. Now, the word selected here might imply a decision, an if statement, or a case. Now, we know that decisions are drawn with a rhombus, okay? But before we get to that, let's do an outline. So I'm just going to insert a few shapes here. They're all going to be text boxes. Here's one. Um, this one's probably going to be section 1. Okay. I'm going to copy the same box. Whoops. And paste it somewhere else. And we're going to give them the names in order as we see them. So sub1 underscore A, sub1 underscore A. We'll copy this one, paste it next to it. This one will be sub1B, like so. And the last one is C, essentially, sub1C, like so. Okay, so we've got part of this already answered, essentially. Now, it's a matter of me figuring out the lines. So we're going to draw lines for each one. So go to shapes. We're going to draw a line here. Well, let's move that to the middle. Okay. Then we're going to draw another line here. And we're going to draw another line there. Okay. But up to now, we haven't shown the selection, and we haven't shown any of these parameters being passed around? Okay, so let's take a look at the first one, sub A. Sub A takes two parameters, okay? We don't see that it returns anything, so we need a parameter called xt and a parameter called pb. Now, sub A receives these parameters, so we need, let's see, do we have a shape with a, we don't. Maybe we'll do a bit of tinkering. Let's see, where is it? Format shape. Let's see, begin style, end style, let's say like so. Ah, perfect. Okay, so we've got one here, and we'll put another one further up, like so. Okay, and we need to label them, so I'm just going to put two little text boxes here. Whoops. Shapes, text box. This one's called xt. Let's make it a bit bigger. Okay. And the other one is called PB. Whoops. Let's move it here. This one's called PB. Okay. And just like that, we've got the first module already finished. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the second one. Function sub 1b. We're talking about this one. This one takes one parameter, and it also returns a Boolean. Now, there's a little mistake here. My shapes, these circles, should be hollow in the middle. Okay? I don't think there's a way for me to do this correctly in Word. Let me try and let's see, format shape. Is there a way for me to change the color? No. For the sake of the example, I'm just going to make them blue for now. Okay, so blue means that they're not, whoops, they're not Boolean. Okay, there we go, blue. Okay, and the ones that I'm going to do green are Boolean values. Okay, so this one takes one parameter. So I'm going to copy this arrow, copy, paste, and we're going to put it here, change the orientation. Something like that. We're going to copy and paste, whoops, and paste that here as well. So we know that the parameter is RA. Okay, perfect. And we also know that it returns a Boolean value. So we need an arrow that looks upwards now. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, paste it, flip it around like so. Okay, and we need another text box to label it. So we're going to label it. Actually, we aren't provided with that information, so we don't need the text box. Okay, but this is a Boolean value, so I'm just going to change the color because Word doesn't allow me to make hollow endpoints. Okay, so let me select that and change the color to green, just to make sure that the green one is the Boolean value. Okay, now we're left with the last one. This one says that it receives a parameter called SB. Okay, this is by value, and by ref, one that's called SA. If we see by ref, it means that the arrow should be pointing both downwards and upwards. Okay, whereas this one, because it's by value, same as everything else that we've seen up to now, should only be pointing downwards. So I'm going to copy this, copy, paste. There we go, and rotate it so that it is pointing in the direction that we want, sort of, like so. There we go. And we need to label this one. So this one's called SB, I believe. Yep, here we go, SB. Okay, and we need another parameter by ref, but by ref means that it's looking at both ways. So I'm just going to copy this and modify it a bit. There we go. It needs to have an arrow on both sides, so we're going to just double click this. Whoops. Format shape. And we're going to say that the endpoint is like that. Okay. And this one should have a label of SA. Like so. Perfect. Now, the last thing that's left is this selection. Now, most students will probably miss this because many of you guys rush through the questions and you don't read everything, but there should be a rhombus in the middle here. Let's see, insert, shape. Do we have a rhombus or something that looks like one? Let's see. There we go. So I'm going to draw a rhombus here. I'm just going to color it something so that we can see it. Let's put the fill in as well. There we go. Okay, so theoretically, that should give us the answer that they are looking for. Now, I'm going to pull up the mark scheme, okay, so that we can see that we are correct, and we'll go from there. So here's the mark scheme. Let's see how close we got to the answer, although I think we are pretty much correct. So we've got the header here called section 1, and then we've got the three modules sub 1A, B, and C, which is perfect. Okay, now we've got two parameters coming in from section 1 to sub A. Now, please, again, forgive me. There's no way for me to put hollow endpoints in Word, so they should look like your examiner shows here in the mark scheme. It doesn't matter if you put XT first or PB. I don't think your examiners would care. One parameter coming into sub B. Again, it's not hollow. I drew them as blue so that we can separate them. And one green one here, that is the return value, and it is Boolean, okay? And then for the last one, we have one parameter coming in by value, the SB, and the SA, which is by reference, okay? But there needs to be a hollow point in the middle. There's no way for me to do this in Word, so I just drew it double-ended like this. Now, the last thing that they illustrate is the decision that's coming off section 1. Okay, and they break down the points here. It says you get a point for four boxes linked as shown, correctly labeled. So if we had section 1, sub 1A, B, and C, and then just the arrows to each, that would be 1 point. We would get 1 point if we had the correct parameters to 1A, so PB and XT. We'd get 1 point for the parameter to sub 1B and the return value. So again, if I had both arrows and the label, okay, we'd get 1 parameter for sub 1C here, okay, and the by ref parameter. And we'd get the final point for the decision. Now, again, I'm pretty confident that most of my students would ignore this little section here. Now, if you manage to get 4 out of 5 points, that's terrific. I can't remember how many points this was. Let me check. Yep, this was a 5-point question. So I'm assuming if you're very careful, you won't miss a single one. It's just a matter of reading what they've given you and just putting it down on paper. Okay? First thing that you would do is make sure you just draw the boxes and the lines to just connect everything. Then it's a matter of understanding what you can see in terms of parameters. Okay? Now, the only different types of arrows that you will see are ones that are by ref, which look like this, the SA one here, and anything that is Boolean, okay, which is shown like this here. Remember, when a module is receiving parameters, so for example here we see sub 1A, in its brackets it's receiving 2 parameters. We know it's receiving because it's in its brackets, okay? The arrows should be pointing downwards, so they should be pointing to this module here, okay? If they are returning values, okay, like for example here, the arrows should be pointing upwards, as you can see with this one here. If the parameters are by ref, they should be pointing in both directions. Right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll catch you in the next one.